those who lived their dirty fantasies. What happened? Story 1. This happened a few years back. I was 21 at the time, and so was my girlfriend, now my ex. Her best friend was throwing a party at her house, and the place was slowly filling up with people and drinks. To give you a little context, my girlfriend and I were incredibly close, physically. Let's just say, we had a hard time keeping our hands off each other, especially when alcohol was involved. The party was lively, and the drinks were flowing. My girlfriend and I were being a little flirty throughout the night, nothing too wild, just playful touches here and there. We were trying to keep it together, it was her best friend's party after all, and we didn't want to steal the spotlight. A few hours in, I realized I hadn't seen my girlfriend or her best friend for a while. I figured they were just catching up somewhere, probably talking in private. But then my girlfriend came up to me, kissed me gently, and whispered something in my ear that made me freeze for a second. It was something along the lines of, "I need you." Now, this wasn't unusual. She had a habit of getting a little bold after a few drinks. Normally, we'd sneak off to a spare bathroom, but this house only had one, and it was in constant use. Instead, she guided me upstairs and into her best friend's bedroom. As soon as the door clicked shut, she pulled off her jeans, climbed onto the bed, and gave me that look, the kind that says, "No time for games." I went to touch her, but she stopped me. "Don't worry about that," she said. "I just want you right now." That caught me off guard. Usually there was a bit of build-up. We took our time. I asked her why the rush, and that's when she confessed. Apparently, she and her best friend had gone upstairs just to talk, but one thing led to another. They'd shared a kiss, and then some. Her friend had gotten a little adventurous, and things escalated. But even after all that, she still came looking for me. She said she needed to feel close to me, that it wasn't just about the moment, but about us. I wasn't angry. Honestly, I was kind of into it. So I kissed her, told her everything was okay, and we got lost in each other. It was intense, more than usual, like all that energy from earlier had built up and was finally being released. Definitely one of the most unforgettable moments we ever shared. Afterwards, she said she wanted to stay in bed for a bit. I got dressed and headed back down to the party. I wasn't mad, but I still had questions. I found her best friend and asked if we could talk. She looked a little nervous when I mentioned my girlfriend was upstairs resting. I told her I knew what had happened, and surprisingly, she didn't deny it. We laughed it off. She apologized, said she was feeling a little wired, and honestly, I could tell. She admitted she was still feeling worked up. I paused for a second, then said, "If you want, I can help with that." She looked at me like she didn't expect that. "Only if you're okay with it," I added. Kind of a way to even the score, and say sorry for using your bed. She laughed, nodded, and then took my hand. This time, we went into her parents' room, a little awkward but private. She sat on the bed, and I knelt down in front of her. I took my time, letting my mouth and hands do the talking. Her reactions were everything, soft gasps, hands over her mouth, legs trembling. The tension between us was electric. Eventually, she pulled me up and kissed me passionately. Then she whispered, "Do to me what you did to her." I didn't hesitate. We moved together like we'd done this before, like we'd been holding back for too long. It was intense, messy, wild, and somehow still felt like a secret we both wanted to keep. When it was over, we straightened up, walked back down to the party, and blended in like nothing had happened. I never found out if she told my girlfriend. I always wondered if we could have had a night with all three of us, but that fantasy stayed just that. Story 2. A few months ago, a woman moved into the apartment next to ours. She's probably in her late 20s, lives alone, and has this magnetic presence. We share a wall. Her living room backs onto our bedroom, so we cross paths more often than you might think. The first time we met, it was casual. I was grabbing the mail, and she was carrying boxes in. We started talking, and it turned into a surprisingly easy conversation. She was friendly, confident, and had that kind of vibe that makes you instantly comfortable. My girlfriend, though, not a fan. She's convinced the new neighbor is trouble. Calls her names, rolls her eyes anytime I mention her. I've tried to explain that she's just being friendly, but I don't think that explanation really lands. Since I work from home, and so does she, we've ended up seeing a lot of each other. Sometimes, I'll head next door for a coffee, or just to get a break from my screen. We sit on her couch, shoot the breeze, laugh about random stuff. She's always dressed in activewear or bike shorts, usually just getting back from the gym or heading out for a run. She's in incredible shape, and there's no denying she's attractive, the kind of look that turns heads without even trying. One day, she invited me in to check out the renovations she'd done. It wasn't anything major, but it was a good excuse to hang out. And that's when things shifted. The conversation got a little more flirtatious, the air a little thicker. She made a move, bold, no hesitation. The line was crossed, sort of. Here's the twist, she has this rule. Says physical stuff is fine, as long as we don't actually sleep together. In her mind, that would be cheating. Everything else? Apparently fair game. I was surprised, honestly. I didn't expect things to go there, but they did. And they've kept going there. Quietly. Repeatedly. She's got this mix of confidence and mystery that's hard to resist. Smart, well-spoken, originally from Ecuador. There's a bit of a Kim K vibe about her, something in the way she carries herself, the way she talks. It's like she knows exactly what effect she has on people and enjoys it without flaunting it. It's been a little over 2 months now. We don't talk about it much. We just sort of let it happen. No expectations, no drama. Just something that exists in its own little bubble, away from everything else. I'm not sure where it's heading, or even if it should head anywhere. For now, it's just this quiet, ongoing thing that seems to exist in the spaces between ordinary life. And honestly, it's hard to walk away from something that feels this easy. Story 3. I was staying over at a friend's place one night, and for some reason, I just couldn't fall asleep. After tossing and turning for a while, I got up and headed to the bathroom. I didn't even think to lock the door. It was late, and I figured everyone else was asleep. I sat there in the quiet, trying to relax and ease some of the tension I was feeling. Just trying to calm myself down in the stillness of the night. Then, out of nowhere, the door creaked open. She walked in. For a second, neither of us moved. I froze, completely caught off guard. But she didn't panic. She just looked at me for a moment with this quiet curiosity, and then said, "Want some help?" I didn't know what to say. I was embarrassed, sure, who wouldn't be? But also, there was a strange sense of relief. Like some invisible wall between us had just disappeared. She stepped closer, and without saying much, joined me. What followed wasn't wild or frenzied. It was gentle, intimate, and incredibly real. My heart was pounding, my breathing shaky. It was like the tension I'd been carrying all night finally had somewhere to go. I let go, emotionally, physically, and it felt like everything inside me just unraveled. It was intense, but not overwhelming. Messy, but in the best way. Afterward, I looked at her and asked if I could return the favor. She didn't hesitate, just smiled softly and nodded. I took my time. I didn't try to make it perfect or follow any script. I just paid attention to her. She responded with little gasps and soft sighs, and slowly, her body started to tremble. She let go too, quietly, powerfully. And the way she looked at me afterward, it was like we'd just shared something we hadn't even known we needed. We didn't say much. We just sat there for a while, both of us a little out of breath, flushed, and warm. There was no awkwardness, no regret. Just a shared sense of closeness, like something had shifted between us in the most natural way possible. It wasn't about lust or crossing a line. It was about comfort, connection, and the quiet honesty of the moment. Story 4. I used to work with this guy. Cool enough, but I never had any real urge to be best buds. That changed after a company event where we were encouraged to bring family. That's when I met his wife. She had this energy, confident, daring, and effortlessly magnetic. She knew she stood out and leaned into it, revealing outfits, full-sleeve tats, and a bold attitude that instantly caught attention. Let's just say, she didn't exactly match the quiet, polite vibe her husband gave off. A few weeks after that event, he invited me on a group camping trip. The moment I found out she'd be there, I was in. Out in the woods, she didn't hold back, tight athletic wear, low-rise jeans showing just enough to make you double-take. When we went swimming, she wore a swimsuit that left very little to the imagination. It was hard not to notice, and honestly, I didn't try not to. The trip was supposed to last 6 days. The first few were innocent enough, group games, drinks by the fire, and just a bit of playful banter between us. But there was something in the way she looked at me, like she knew exactly what she was doing. On the 4th day, most of the group went mountain biking. I stayed back, claiming I was hungover, which wasn't exactly a lie, but also not the whole truth. I just wanted time alone with her. She didn't even act surprised when everyone left. There was this unspoken understanding between us. We ended up alone in their camping trailer, and let's just say, things escalated quickly. She was bold, confident, and took control without hesitation. It wasn't rushed or clumsy, it was intense. Her energy was wild, and I matched it without thinking. The way she responded, the way she moved, it was like she'd been waiting for that moment just as much as I had. We ended up tangled in the sheets, completely lost in the moment. And when it was over, we both just laughed quietly to ourselves, not out of guilt or regret, but because it felt like something inevitable had finally happened. Later, when the others came back, she greeted her husband like nothing had happened, sweet, affectionate, totally composed. It was surreal, watching her act so casual, knowing what had just gone down. There was something undeniably thrilling about the secrecy of it all. Before the trip ended, we found a few more stolen moments together. And yeah, I still think about it sometimes. Story 5. So for context, my brother-in-law and I have never gotten along. Like ever. We argue over the pettiest things, tone, opinions, even the way we breathe around each other. It's always been this strange, fiery tension between us. Honestly, he gets under my skin like no one else, and I'm pretty sure I do the same to him. One morning, my husband was at work, and his brother stopped by to grab the boat they share for a fishing trip. I was still in my nightgown, hadn't even bothered to change yet since it was early. Let's just say it wasn't the most modest thing I could have worn. It barely covered anything, and yeah, it definitely showed off more than it should have. He walks in, and of course, we immediately start bickering like always. I was already in one of my moods, so I snapped at him to hurry up and get what he needed. He fired back with something rude, nothing new. Then out of nowhere, he muttered, "You'd probably be less grumpy if someone took care of you." I laughed, partly annoyed, partly surprised. "What, you think you could handle me?" I shot back. The energy between us shifted. He stepped closer, and suddenly we weren't just arguing. We were towing a line that had always been there, but never crossed. Next thing I knew, I was leaning over the kitchen counter, still laughing but now fully aware of how close he was. It was like the banter had turned into a dare. I teased him, still thinking he wouldn't actually do anything. But then his hands were on me, not forceful but firm, lingering, and I could feel the tension building in a way I hadn't expected. He brushed his hand across my back, then lower. I could tell he was waiting for me to stop him, but I didn't. I don't even know why. Maybe it was the years of friction, the heat of the moment, or just curiosity. Either way, the air between us thickened, and suddenly everything felt real and intense. Without getting into details, let's just say things escalated. We crossed that line fully. And what surprised me most wasn't that it happened, but how it felt. Everything was electric. The kind of connection that's not about love or romance, but about raw, unexpected chemistry. Afterward, we didn't speak much. We just stood there, a little breathless, both stunned by what had just happened. It was wild, messy, and completely unexpected. And as much as I can't stand him, that moment, it was unforgettable. Story 6. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to catch feelings for someone way older, let alone my best friend's dad. But looking back, it might have been the most surprising and exciting thing I've ever let happen. It started out like any normal night at her house. We were curled up on the couch watching movies, gossiping about school, and sneaking snacks from the kitchen. At some point, around 11, we figured her dad had gone to bed. The house had gone quiet, and we hadn't seen him in a while. That's when we borrowed a little of his liquor and started sipping. Then my friend got a call from her boyfriend and, like usual, snuck out to go see him. I should have gone to bed, but I was buzzed and restless. The backyard called to me, specifically the hot tub. Thinking I had the place to myself, I stripped down and slipped into the warm, bubbling water. The night was quiet, the jets were loud, and the stars were out. It felt like one of those dreamlike moments where everything fades but the warmth and the thrill of doing something a little reckless. About 10 minutes in, I heard the door slide open behind me. My heart jumped. It was her dad. I sank lower into the water, hoping the bubbles and darkness would keep things discreet. He looked surprised but calm, asking where his daughter was. I played it cool, mumbling that I wasn't sure. He seemed to already suspect she'd snuck out. Apparently, it wasn't the first time. Then, to my complete surprise, he disappeared and came back wearing swim trunks, shirtless, and holding a joint. Without asking, he climbed into the hot tub with me. I instinctively scooted to the other side, trying to keep some distance, for obvious reasons. He noticed and asked why I was so far away. "There's plenty of space," he said casually, like this was totally normal. We started talking. Just small things, life, school, graduation plans. He passed me the joint, and I admitted I'd never smoked before. He chuckled and showed me how, and before I knew it, we were both a little more relaxed. The kind of relaxed where time slows down, and everything feels a little hazy but warm. The jets were still running, and between the noise and the smoke, it was hard to hear each other. That's when he reached over and turned them off. And just like that, the water went still and quiet, and I realized I was now completely visible. No more bubbles, no more cover. He just looked at me for a moment, not saying anything. The air between us shifted, charged with something neither of us had expected. He moved closer, slowly, and I didn't stop him. I didn't even think to. He reached out, brushing my arm, then tucked a piece of hair behind my ear. My heart was racing. Then, softly but confidently, he kissed me. It was my first kiss, and it wasn't awkward or rushed. It was intense, but not overwhelming, like he somehow knew exactly how to take his time. I don't know how long we stayed like that, touching, exploring a connection that felt taboo but electric. It was overwhelming, but not in a bad way. It was the kind of moment you don't forget, the kind that lives at the edge of every ordinary decision you've ever made. When it was over, we didn't talk much. We just sat there in the water, both of us silent, breathless, and probably just as confused as we were curious. But one thing was clear, something had started that night, and part of me definitely wanted to explore it more. Story 7. It all started last summer, or at least that's when things shifted. My sister-in-law and I have always had a strange kind of energy. She'd always been a bit touchy, a little too playful. I never thought much of it at first, just chalked it up to her being flirty by nature. But last summer, something changed. We'd all floated down the river that day, and by the time we got home, we were sun-kissed and more than a little tipsy. My wife headed straight for the shower and ended up crashing early. I started prepping dinner, getting ready to fire up the grill. That's when it happened. My sister-in-law walked down the hallway straight from the shower, her hair wrapped in a towel and nothing else. She didn't say a word, just passed by with a small smirk over her shoulder. I tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to notice. The image stuck in my head longer than it should have. A week later, she was back at the house. I was in the shower when the bathroom door opened. I assumed it was my wife, so I stepped out casually, towel over my shoulders. But it wasn't my wife, it was her. She didn't flinch. I didn't either. She walked by like it was nothing, but not before grazing her body against mine just enough to make it clear she knew exactly what she was doing. That entire weekend, the air between us was charged. Every casual touch, every glance, felt like it was building toward something. She'd linger during conversations, ask me to rub her shoulders, or stretch out on the couch with her head in my lap. It was subtle, but not really. Then, one afternoon while my wife was out shopping, I was working around the property while my sister-in-law claimed she was recovering from the night before. I looked over from the tractor and saw her laying out on the back porch, topless, sunbathing like she was alone in the world. When I approached, she didn't cover up. Instead, she asked me to help with her tanning oil. I started with her back, trying to keep it professional, but she wasn't exactly shy. Before long, I was massaging lotion into her chest, and she was guiding my hands exactly where she wanted them. The moment was intense, quiet, but full of unspoken tension. Later, back inside, we ended up on the couch. What started as a casual foot rub turned into something much more intimate. Her body language, her eyes, all of it told me she was waiting for me to make a move. And this time, I didn't resist. That night changed everything. We didn't speak about it afterward. But 2 weeks later, she showed up again. My wife was out of town, and my sister-in-law knew it. When I got home, her car was in the driveway, and she was already inside, waiting. There was no pretending anymore. No subtle glances or teasing. It was clear what we were doing, and neither of us hesitated. Since then, it's been a few quiet moments here and there. Random visits. Shared looks. Secret glances across the room. My wife has no idea, and I'm not sure where this is all going, but I can't pretend the connection isn't real. It's messy, complicated, and hard to ignore. But it happened, and it keeps happening. Story 8. There's a little dive bar my husband and I go to a couple of times a month. It's nothing fancy, pool tables, neon signs, and the same regulars most nights. He's part of a pool league with his buddies, so while they play, the other wives and I usually find our way to the dance floor. It's our little escape, music loud enough to drown out the world, flashing lights, and just enough room to let go. Guys sometimes try to dance with us, but it's all harmless. Our husbands don't mind. They know it's just dancing. A few months ago, one night stood out. As usual, my husband was buried in a game. I was dancing with my friends when one of the regulars, a guy I'd seen around before but never really paid attention to, stepped up and started dancing with me. At first, it was just playful. But soon, things got more intense. He was bold. His hands wandered, his body pressed close. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half laughing, half worried my husband might look up. But he didn't. The guy leaned in and whispered compliments in my ear, told me I was gorgeous, sexy. I hadn't expected to feel so flattered, but I did. We danced all night, and by the end of it, I was flushed and sweaty, my heart pounding with adrenaline, and something else I didn't want to name. As the night wrapped up, he leaned in again and said, "Take my number." I laughed, held up my ring, and said, "You know I'm married." He just smiled. "Take it anyway." And I did, not really planning to use it. But then Sunday came. My husband was out fishing, and I was home restless. Out of boredom, or maybe curiosity, I texted him. It started innocent enough. A few flirty messages. Then a few more. By the end of the day, we were trading compliments and teasing each other like we'd known each other longer than just one dance. Monday morning, my phone buzzed. It was him, asking if he could come by. I hesitated, then said yes. Around 10:30, he pulled into the driveway. We sat on the couch, the air thick with tension. We talked. We flirted. And then he asked if he could kiss me. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. The kiss was intense. Slow at first, then hungry, the kind of kiss that makes you forget where you are. His touch felt familiar, like an echo of that night on the dance floor. Clothes started to come off, and before long, the room was spinning in the best kind of way. It was reckless. It was impulsive. But in that moment, it felt undeniable. Story 9. It was one of those weekends that lives in your memory long after it's over. A college reunion with about 10 of us, all crammed into a cozy rental house, catching up, laughing, and slipping easily back into our old rhythms. We had drinks flowing, music playing, and just enough nostalgia to make everything feel a little surreal. After hours of card games and casual gossip, someone suggested we play an old favorite: truth, dare, confession, or situation. At first, it was all light stuff. Did you cheat on your ex? What's the worst date you've had? The kind of questions that make you laugh and squirm, but still feel safe. Then the dares started heating up. Someone was dared to flirt shamelessly with one of the guys. Another was challenged to hover just inches from someone else's lips without kissing. Even the guys weren't spared. One had to awkwardly place his hand near another's lap, all in good humor. The energy in the room grew more playful, more charged. When it was my turn, I'd already done a few light-hearted dares, silly things like moaning dramatically or pretending to grind on my best friend, who, by the way, has been my partner in crime since freshman year. We've always had that playful, no-boundaries kind of friendship. Then someone dared me to act out a scene, something wild, something bold. I was supposed to pretend I was the center of attention in a very adult-themed scenario. At first, I hesitated. I laughed it off, tried to choose a different option, but the group was relentless, not in a mean way, just full of energy and encouragement. So I gave in. It was all pretend, of course, over the top and dramatic, like a scene from a ridiculous movie. I got down on my knees in the center of the room, surrounded by laughter and cheers. The guys didn't actually do anything. It was all play acting. I mimed reactions, acted shocked and over the top, and the girls joined in too, adding to the chaos. At one point, they even handed me a spoonful of whipped cream, and I played along, pretending it was part of the act. The room erupted in cheers, and someone jokingly called me a good sport. Right after that, the dares kept going. My best friend was up next, and was told to check if I'd gotten flustered from the performance. She didn't even blink. We've been close for years, and honestly, modesty has never been our thing. She leaned in, teased me a bit, and then flashed her fingers to the group with exaggerated flair. Everyone screamed and laughed like we were all teenagers again. Then, of course, someone dared a guy to keep the joke going. He played along, dramatic and ridiculous in the way you do when everyone's watching. It was one of those moments where you're not sure whether to laugh or hide under a blanket, so I laughed hard. The rest of the night kept that same energy, flirty, chaotic, a little wild but never crossing too far. Some couples disappeared into their rooms. Others stayed up talking, sharing drinks and stories until late into the night. I ended up sharing a bed with my best friend, like we've done 100 times before. We talked, laughed, and eventually passed out, the sounds of muffled music and whispers in the background. It was one of those nights that blurred the lines between friendship, fun, and fantasy, and one I'll probably remember for a long time. Story 10. After my first experience at that unusual bar, the one with the, let's say, unexpected architecture in the bathroom, I found myself thinking about it more than I expected. There was something surreal about the whole thing. The secrecy, the adrenaline, the anonymity. It wasn't just the physical aspect, it was the atmosphere, the mystery, and how far removed it felt from my everyday life. So I went back. I told my friend I wanted to hit up that same bar again. She raised an eyebrow. I mean, the place isn't exactly known for its vibe. No real music, overpriced drinks, and kind of a rundown look. But she didn't ask too many questions, and I didn't offer any. As soon as we got there, I had one drink, made some small talk, and then needed the restroom. You can imagine where I headed. Just like before, I found myself in that same last stall. The adrenaline was back, stronger than ever. But this time I had to wait. 5 minutes, maybe more, but it felt like forever. Then finally, someone on the other side made a move. It was quick, almost too quick. There was barely time for anything. But the energy? Still there. After that, I wasn't ready to leave. I waited again. Eventually, another visitor arrived. This time, I came prepared. Let's just say things advanced a bit further. Though with the setup being what it is, there are definitely some logistical challenges. Still, I did what I could, and I think it's fair to say he left satisfied. As for me, not quite, but I didn't mind. There was something almost meditative about it, quiet, anonymous, and completely my own space. I stayed a little longer, let the moment catch up to me, and just let go. At one point, I realized someone was watching, probably through one of the cracks in the stall. We didn't speak, of course. That's not how it works there. But that feeling, being seen, but not known, added another layer to the whole thing. Something I didn't expect, but didn't hate. I've been back a few times since then. Each visit is a little different. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes something does. But every time, I leave feeling like I stepped into another world for a little while. One where no one knows who I am, and I don't have to explain myself. It's not about shame or rebellion. It's about curiosity. About exploring a part of myself that doesn't always fit into polite conversation.